And welcome, everybody, to episode 55 of the Progression to the Mean podcast. I am your host, Shaun Moran. We have got a special edition of the RTM pod with a special guest. It's back like he never left. Welcome back, Kev Mahserejian. Kev, the roto surgeon. How are you doing, my man?
Shaun, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I'm so sorry that we don't have Keegan on the episode today to get the full bore episode of all three of us, but it's going to be a great time. I'm excited to talk some pass catchers.
No Keegan here today. Keegan had to drive to the Central Valley. So for anyone of our listeners that knows where that is, you know that Keegan's having a tough day. But we have Aidan here joining. Aidan, you're making this kind of a regular thing. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. Yeah. Friend of the program, frequent friend of the program at this point. I'm feeling good. 3 weeks out from the draft, and we're still talking prospects. So, we're hanging in there and, ready for a fun draft here today.
Yeah. Before we dive in, real quick, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, so at RotoSurgeon on Twitter, that's literally stream of consciousness. That's where my takes, my tweets, all that good stuff goes out. So if you want any and all information on whatever sport, baseball, football, and even some basketball, check me out on Twitter. And then the operating room is the podcast. Go check that out for, I'm doing baseball right now, but football season as it leaks in, I will be getting into the drafts. Probably post NFL draft, I will have some dynasty takes maybe. So yeah, check out the operating room and follow me on Twitter at RotoSurgeon.
If you have listened to us previously, we have covered quarterbacks, we have covered running backs, we've covered lessons from the 2022 draft. Today's episode, we are combining wide receivers and tight ends, and the three of us are going to do a 1 through 12 snake draft. So if you're familiar with our running back format, we're doing the exact same thing with Aidan and Kev. Really, why we combined tight ends and wide receivers? One, not the best wide receiver class. We've been incredibly spoiled over the last 2 to 3 years. And two, this tight end class is ridiculous. Like truly, truly special tight end class. A lot of guys are going to have like 10-year careers in the NFL. I don't know if they're going to be incredible as pass catchers, but a lot of guys, they're going to play and be very valuable in real football terms. So I thought it'd be a lot of fun if we combined it. We drafted. We know the format. This is fantasy football. This is football. We love drafting things, all right? This is what we get out of bed for. Okay, Kev, you are our guest on today's episode. So we thought it'd be fair if you picked first. Aidan is going to pick second. I'm going to handle third and take that wraparound for fourth. So Kev, why don't you get us started here? Who are you taking first in this very official pass catcher draft?
Very official.
Very
Yeah, I'm going with my USC boy, Jordan Addison. That's a lock. I'm taking him number one as my wide receiver one. Obviously, Bijan, maybe even Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd take over him in like a standard league, but that's neither here nor there. Pass catcher wise, he is the number one wide receiver for fantasy. I love Quentin Johnston's upside. I consider him as well, in this range. And Jaxon Smith Njigba, obviously fantastic to be a stellar fantasy piece. But, Addison's been doing this for multiple seasons. He's been a dominant, productive wide receiver since Pittsburgh. I still say he's the reason that Kenny Pickett got drafted in the first round. Similar to how Will Levis got this hype, to Wan'Dale Robinson being, a 50% target or whatever, 50% usage share, whatever it was in his time at Kentucky. My belief is Jordan Addison was so good, he made Kenny Pickett look like an NFL quarterback. So I'm going with him number one. Like he kept that production up in a even more talented USC wide receiver room with Mario Williams, Jerry Rice's son, many like Kyle Ford and many others. So yeah, Jordan Addison number one.
Wow. I knew it wasn't going to be JSN. I was telling Aidan before we recorded that it wasn't going to be JSN. I thought maybe it'd be QJ, but we have Jordan Addison off the board. Yeah, he really had a dominant breakout season as a sophomore with Kenny Pickett. And then, he had a really good season with USC, but it wasn't like the statistical dominance that he had. I think he won the Bolitnikov at Pitt, which is crazy. So he went 2 different schemes, 2 different quarterbacks, 2 different conferences, put up big numbers. When I'm looking at the tape with Addison, like he's super smooth. Whenever he's coming in and out of his breaks, running his routes, I don't really see him decelerating. It's not jerky. It is very smooth. For his size, he's more of like a lunch pail receiver than you would give him credit for, where he's just going to get out there, get open, get a first down. I think what was interesting too, when you look at the stats, he was incredible at Pitt, and he had a primary slot percentage usage of like 68%. He goes to USC, and he only plays in the slot 23% of his snaps. So I don't know if he projects as like a slot receiver or as an X or someone you can move around the rotation, but I think he projects as a very good like wide receiver 2 and could like be a wide receiver 1. He's kind of like skinny, smaller Calvin Ridley, which you kind of see like to his game. I see a little bit of Hollywood Brown, but Aidan, what do you think about Addison?
Yeah, I like him a ton. I've watched him over the last 2 years. The comp that I kind of get when I watch him is more so ARSB, but I kind of see the Calvin Ridley too in terms of the size, and it just feels like he's always open when you watch him on tape. It's very smooth in and out of his cuts, all 3 levels of the field, just being able to stretch it and really get behind the defense. So I think it's a slam dunk pick.
He broke 21 tackles at Pitt.
He had like 1,600 yards.
Nice.
Yeah, like you said, it definitely boosted Kenny Pickett's stock there, having a guy like that consistently catching the ball and getting into the end zone.
Yeah, looking at his true freshman year at Pitt, he led the team in yards, and the only other comparable wide receiver on the team was a senior. So it was DJ Turner, was second in yards, and he was a true freshman, basically leading the team and outperforming super senior. And although DJ Turner isn't some star wide receiver or anything, but it still shows how developed he was, how talented he was from a young age. Obviously won the Biltney Coffin as a sophomore. That's huge. That's Jamar. I mean, he's not Jamar Chase, but that's what Jamar Chase did. And then obviously he took the next season off. Jordan Addison could have taken his junior season off and waited to get drafted. He would have been a lock for the first round. And I don't want to say playing at USC hurt his stock, but I think it was just like prospect fatigue where you expect, a 2,000 yard season with Caleb Williams, where he was really good. He missed like 3 games. He played 11 out of 14 games last year. So it's not like he was fully healthy. And again, he played in a more talented wide receiver room. Mario Williams, I expect to get drafted pretty high next year. And I don't think you could really hold his junior year against him, considering how good his sophomore season was. And the fact that he didn't really suffer like a major injury that's going to carry over. It was just something minor that lingered, and they wanted him healthy for potential playoff run.
He put up numbers still, though. It's not like he had like a Cedric Tillman where he caught 12 touchdowns his junior year and then comes out of senior year and has 400 yards, right? Like he still had a great
He was still
season.
like right around 1,000 yards. He was all over the field. He had some huge games. Still a pretty impressive season.
I think he's really good. I think I see him more as like a wide receiver 2 in the NFL, but in the right offense, he's going to put up a ton of fantasy points because he's just going to be open.
Yeah, I like the Calvin Ridley comp, though. I think that's, for fantasy at least, is that one wide receiver 1B, where if you have, I projected, I did a little mock, I put him on the Titans, where like a Treylon Burks, Jordan Addison combo, where Burks is the X outside, pure just go routes and slants and whatnot, just like let him run 3 routes and let him dominate. And then you have Jordan Addison on the other side as the Z, kind of doing his thing, being a little more creative. Maybe that hybrid Diontae Johnson, Calvin Ridley type. And I'm not the biggest Diontae Johnson fan, but in that similar mold of being a deep threat and awesome route runner who just gets open at will and takes pressure off Burks in the meantime, because Burks obviously is limited. He's a fantastic wide receiver. I'm going to draft him this year, but having them play off each other like AJ Brown and Devonta Smith did just last season, I think that's a perfect fit. And, the Calvin Ridley, Diontae Johnson-ish mold of Addison is just, it's going to flow so well in the NFL.
Yeah. I like that. All right, Aidan, you're on the clock. Who are you taking it to?
Let's do it. I thought he was definitely going 1-1, but I'm going JSN. I had pretty much had him crossed off, down to 1-2. I absolutely love it here. Dude's a freak. Obviously didn't play much last year, but looks fully healthy. His combine and pro day numbers are absolutely insane. Back in 2021, outproducing Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And you look at what those guys are doing in the NFL already, and to come to think, he might be the best one out of all 3 of them. I love him. It just feels like the kind of just like twitch and open space and his ability to get open is going to be a QB's best friend. No idea where he's going to fall, but I think absolutely security blanket, going to be an absolute stud in the NFL. No reason why he can't come in and be the wide receiver 1 from day 1 on any given offense.
That game again, the game he had against Utah, it was like over 300 yards,
3 touchdowns. It was.
It looked fake when they showed it up. It's like something when you do like Road to Glory in NCAA, and it was just like your wide receiver had 400 receiving yards. It seemed fake. I don't know how to make this where wide receivers that are clearly so elite then say the other guy was better than them. Like,
Right?
remember when AJ Brown and DK Metcalf were like Elijah Moore?
Yes.
It's like,
I think
really?
this
You really
one
think
is
Elijah
more
Moore is better than you?
realistic, though. It's like,
Okay.
like we saw it on tape. It was like the three of them were playing together. He outproduced them both by hundreds of yards playing. Like, we'll see. Like, maybe it's not going to happen, but with his pro day measurables and just like hit that quick twitch, I see him being an absolute slam dunk. Yeah, we'll see where he goes, though. I feel like it's all about fit at the end of the day. Ideally, he falls into a favorable position, especially for fantasy football purposes. But yeah, 1-2, I'm feeling pretty good that he's there for me.
Yeah. I think he reminds me of like a souped up Jacoby Myers, which isn't an insult because I really like Jacoby Myers, but I feel like he's going to be great in like fantasy football. He's not the fastest, obviously. He's not like, we know this. He's like a 4.5 wide receiver, which isn't the end of the world. DeAndre Hopkins isn't a fast wide receiver. Antonio Brown wasn't a very fast wide receiver. You could win, especially you could win inside outside as a 4.5 wide receiver, especially at like 6 foot, almost 200 or so, whatever he weighs. But my fear is that playing like the one season we saw him, he played with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. And yes, he outproduced him, but how much of him outproducing him was teams respecting Olave and Wilson more than they respected JSN in the slot? And that's not to say that JSN is bad because of it, because he still put up the numbers. But teams knew of Olave. Teams knew of Garrett Wilson after his freshman year. And Olave had been around for about 2 years before then. He didn't really play much as a true freshman, which isn't the biggest knock. Jamison Williams didn't play at Ohio State at all until he got, and then he played when he got transferred to Alabama. And then he, in his third year, has the hamstring, which soft tissue injuries I'm not a huge fan of, because those are things that linger, especially when they're serious enough to keep you out for roughly a full year. When he was on the field, he didn't look that good either. So was he healthy? Was he not? We don't know. I feel like in a vacuum, if you're giving me Addison or JSN, and JSN would have played last season and produced similarly to 2021, or at least, how Addison still had a great year, but wasn't 2021 Jordan Addison, I would take JSN just based off of how elite his 2021 is. But like hamstring injury, 1 year, I don't want to say 1 year wonder, but 1 year of production. It's very tough to take that for me at 1, but I understand that peak is so crazy though. Like 1,600 yards, the 300-yard game. But I don't know. I'm torn on him.
You have a good point. No one's talking about the injury. It's like no one's talking about it. Like, I think people are just assuming that he was kind of hurt, but then just sat out the season to not impact his draft stock. I don't know. I haven't explicitly seen that, but I think that's just kind of the vibe or the assumption. I think I would be a little more skeptical or more willing to pump the brakes if we just hadn't seen Amon-Ra St. Brown just be an absolute fantasy stud and real life stud. And you watch ARSB, and I think ARSB is a little tougher. I think he'll stay in over the middle of the field and take more hits. I think that they're really similar, though, because JSN gets a knock that he's not very fast because he isn't, but his agility, his 3-cone drill, like basically historic, right? Just really agile player. Yeah. And he does break more tackles on film than he gets credit for. He is making guys miss, and he is generating some yak. Now, it isn't like Jalin Hyatt yak. It isn't Quentin Johnston yak, right? Where it's just like, whoa. It's not like that. But he is able to make a guy miss, pick up some extra yards, like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think people comparing him to Cooper Kupp, like that is very high ceiling, right? Like Cooper Kupp's like 4 inches taller. I think seeing Amon-Ra St. Brown do what he did in that Lions offense, like just plop him into a McVay style, Shanahan style offense, let him run the slot, run your passing game through him. You mentioned Jordan Addison and Treylon Burks being a good fit. I could really see JSN fitting really well with the vertical game of Treylon Burks, with the yak game of Treylon Burks. I could see it. I think he's going to be a good fit really wherever he goes, but I think his ceiling will be dependent upon if his offensive coordinator wants to make him kind of the fulcrum of the passing game. And I think you and I have talked about this too, Kev. It's like a Keenan Allen comp that could make sense.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
that's like the ceiling. Yeah. That's the ceiling. Like, I feel like Jacoby Myers to Keenan Allen, I mean, that's obviously very good, but it's just where would he land? If he's fully healthy, I'd put him closer to the Keenan Allen. But given that we don't really know, and I really wish he would have just taken 2022 off. I would have so fewer concerns because obviously the injury wouldn't exist and we wouldn't have seen him not produce when he was on the field. It just, these question marks wouldn't exist. I'd be taking, just based off the 3-cone alone, I would be taking him first overall. But it's not. That's not the case. We have the information at hand that he did miss the time. that he wasn't productive when he was on the field, and that's why I'm going to have to stick with Addison. And as much as I hype Quentin Johnston, I like him more in real life when I do hype him up. I think he's a difference maker on the field, but when it comes down to fantasy, when it comes down to earning targets, I think JSN and Jordan Addison are going to do a better job of that. And so not to seem like a half measure because they're just top 3 in general, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like jumble it up however you want. I'd be fine with Quentin Johnston at 1 if I got him, but if you're allowing me to pick, JSN would probably fall. And God, I hate hammies, man. It's just
they linger.
These are things
they keep popping back up too. It's
and Keenan Allen too.
One more
We're talking about Keenan Allen. It's pretty apropos.
Keenan got a bad rap though because his kidney erupted, and then he was he had the ACL, he had the kidney,
the hammy he had,
and that's
where he was just I'm not coming back to this thing's right, and he was
out
for remember when Brian Robinson got shot, came back before Keenan Allen came back
significantly
from his
faster.
It was insane. Yeah, it was insane. But you're right, Keenan's been a warrior ever since his first couple years in the league. The guy's just always been on the field.
Yeah.
All right, I've got the third pick. This is not going how I thought it was going to go. I'm not going to lie. This is kind of
Who'd you think
off.
you were getting?
Dude, I thought I was going to have to choose between Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. But he's on the board. He's the most polarizing wide receiver prospect on the board. Got to take Quentin Johnston out of TCU with the third pick. I'm swinging here for pure upside. QJ is somebody that a lot of people think sucks or think he's the next alpha in the NFL. You squint hard enough when you're watching him play, you see DeAndre Hopkins. But then when you squint out and take your glasses off, you see Kevin White. It's all over the place.
Too soon. That hurts.
On things you can see, but you don't see him create a ton of separation off the line of scrimmage. He's not that tactician like a JSN or Jordan Addison is. But then you see they run a screenplay for him and he catches it 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He makes 4 guys miss and he picks up 20 yards on a chunk play off of Yak. And I think Yak is so valuable in the NFL, and maybe I'm just drinking the 49ers Kool-Aid because that's what all of our receivers do. But I think if you're going to have a really strong offensive coordinator, take Quentin Johnston, have a specific role for him, and say, we want you running crossers. We just want you going over the middle of the field, slants. We're going to make this as easy as possible. We're just going to mesh with you. Remember this house call against Michigan where it was just he runs over the course of the middle of the field. Yeah. It was a natural pick play. It was one-on-one versus a safety in college, and it's good luck. QJ's off to the races. He's off to the house. It's I think if someone like the New York Giants were to draft QJ, I would be so pumped to see Dable scheme it up for him. I think it would look really awesome. If I saw the Patriots take him, I think his career would be over. I would be very concerned about Quentin Johnston, but I mean, the guys just bounce off of him, and he has by far and away the best move of any wide receiver in the draft. It's that fake spin where he catches it and he starts to lean one way and he hits the reverse tornado spin.
I was going to say
and
that.
It's coming on every play and he just dusts people.
That first step when he catches is special. For his size too, you shouldn't be moving at 6'3", 210 to have that type of twitch first step when he's catching it and just absolutely dust you upfield is it's special.
It's not very physical though, at the catch point, but he's incredibly physical after the catch. He's just kind of a conundrum. If you just fix 2 things from his game, without a doubt, he's a top 10 pick in this draft. If you just gave him better hands at the point of the catch, for jump balls, and you just made him just even a little bit more of a nuanced route runner. But I mean, if you look at Matt Harmon's reception perception, I thought it wasn't going to be very favorable to Quentin Johnston. I thought it was going to really come through that he was a bad route runner. He's 85th percentile against man coverage. He's 59th against press, which means he can beat press man, which is solid. But he's really bad against zone coverage. He was 12%. So
that's the mission.
Kind of a weird prospect. I think he is a slam dunk in terms of swinging for upside. He is the most high risk, high reward, high variance player in the draft. And I think, Kev, you hit it too. He could just be a really good football player where you put him on the field and just changes the dynamic of the offense, but it doesn't necessarily always translate to fantasy.
Yeah, which, if he's a 120 target guy instead of the 140 that I expect from like JA and JSN, that's not going to be as valuable for fantasy, but it's still like you're a difference maker on the field. When I watch Quentin Johnston and the numbers check out. You look at his numbers, true sophomore year, he broke out relative to how many games he played. The numbers check out. You're just like, okay, he had a dominant season. He's good. It just on the surface, it doesn't look as good because he played like 8 games.
Yeah,
that's the issue. He didn't have the volume, but in terms of per game production, he was great. You look at his numbers early 2022. I think it was like the first 4 or 5 games he was dealing with like an ankle injury. He got healthy. He was having 200-yard games regularly.
Kansas.
So, yeah, I mean, he was dominant for a full season, and then this last season, it was a half season, but, whatever. Just looking on tape, what I see with Quentin Johnston is someone who moves different.
Yeah.
That's what I look for when I look at skill position players. Can you do something no one else, not to say no one else in the NFL can, but no one of your peers can do? Quentin Johnston in the middle of the field up against man, like you said, that little tornado spin move. I don't know where I've seen that. It's scary. Just seeing the way he could basically turn around defenders and make them not just make them miss in the open field, but like when they're looking right at him, they completely whiff. So there's like a je ne sais quoi. Not that I know French, but that one phrase. It's just like there's something about it. There's that it factor. He's built different. The hashtag I'm built different. Blah blah blah. Quentin Johnston is. You're watching someone who plays the game at a different speed than everyone else. And it's not necessarily deep speed. It's not necessarily his 40. It's not necessarily his 3-cone time. It's just the way he moves with the ball in his hands. And that's the most dangerous thing when it comes to fantasy or discussing any of these guys, quote unquote, ball in his hands, because that just means he's probably a bad pass catcher. And hopefully he works on his hands. He's still very young. He's not a 50-year guy. He's coming out as an early declare, which is good. He gets that first round draft capital. I'm as assured of him as I could be, honestly.
And Max Duggan sucked. He was not that good. He was 5, but like
he was not Heisman.
He was not making it easy. He was like a Tebow.
Just so much heart.
Like,
so much heart.
Yeah, just laying it out.
Teammates absolutely loved him. Like it's just like a legend around those parts of town. But it was like it's time to go, man.
It was tough to evaluate QJ. It was like maybe he'd be better if these balls were.
That ball could have been thrown a little higher to the 6'3" guy on the outside there, maybe. What do you think?
It's like why couldn't he high point that? The ball's like in right here. It's like you want to I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because he's in the end zone, the ball's at the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want.
Come on,
It
Max.
was tough. Okay, so I have the 4th pick here. Aidan, I'm gonna leave your guy.
I think
I'm going to leave your guy on the board.
I know where this
so
is going. Yeah, I know where this is going.
With the 4th pick in the pass catcher draft, I'm taking Dalton Kincaid,
there it is.
tight end out of Utah. So why am I so high on Kincaid? Maybe it's because I've been watching his highlights late at night and I'm getting a little sleepy, but he kind of looks like a baby Travis Kelce. We can end the podcast. I just made the comp. I probably shouldn't have, but I just love the way that this guy moves. I think that with his size and his ability to run really nice routes, really strong ball tracking skills, makes really strong contested catches, like really highlight reel along the boundary, body control, high point catches. He's faster than he looks. He has really good feet. He really forces defenders to take weird angles. Like guys are trying to square him up, trying to end his life. But the way he subtly moves just has guys bouncing off of him. And I think that's really impressive. Like if you look at PFF's grade, like we can take PFF with a grain of salt, right? But PFF had Dalton Kincaid as the number 1 rated pass catcher out of every available wide receiver and tight end in the entire nation, which is just insane. If you look at his yards per route run, 2.4, which is really healthy for a tight end, 5.7 yak per reception. So he is breaking some tackles, much more than Michael Mayer. He is able to do some stuff with the ball in his hands. It's not like a Gronkowski. It's not a Kittle by any means, but he is able to make a defender miss and do something with the ball in his hands. And I think a really fun stat, too, is in the biggest game of his career against Kev's USC Trojans, Dalton Kincaid, 16 catch, 234 yard with a sprinkle of a tutty masterpiece. And I watched that game live. I don't watch a lot of college football. And I was really impressed. The guy put the team on his back, beat USC in a huge game. It was like Caleb Williams' big game. against Utah, and the dude was unguardable. And I love that. He's a gamer. He's screaming up draft boards right now. This man, Daniel Jeremiah's got him 9th overall as his 9th best prospect. I'm all in on Kincaid. Aidan, what do you think about Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah, I love Kincaid. I think from a pure like pass catching standpoint at the tight end position in this draft, like he's my clear number one. Like an overall tight end, like with his blocking, is probably not like, the most overall package, but I think in terms of like being an athlete and an absolute nightmare matchup, he's going to be awesome at the next level. Like you said, like he's had some of those games where it just feels like they're double teaming him and there's just no answer for him. With his size and athleticism and soft hands, it's just like put the ball somewhere near him and he's coming down with the ball and he's just kind of locked in. So again, as a UCLA fan, I've watched him the last 2 years too, just like terrorize us. And it's like, can anyone cover this guy? Like, how do we do it? Like, do we chip him, put a third guy on him? Like, what do you do? It just feels like his athletic upside, if he lands up in the right spot, is going to be an absolute beast for both just NFL purposes and fantasy football rosters.
I think he's going to crush in fantasy.
Absolutely.
Kev, what do you think? You think it's sacrilege to take him over a wide receiver?
I think it's sacrilegious to take him over like 2 other tight ends. I'm not a big fan of Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
And that's not just because he beat up on a weak-ass USC defense. That was
It's so bad.
Utah put up like 100 points against USC between 2 games, and it wasn't just because of Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
Cameron Rising was going ham both of those games. He went nutso. And then who's this other tight end? Thomas Yacine. USC just couldn't stop their tight ends at all. It was, Yacine had more production. I mean, an injured Kincaid in the second game, but he put up like 81 yards on 2 catches and a touchdown. So let's not go crazy over beating up USC's terrible defense. One of his other 200-yard games last season was against a FCS Southern Utah team. I'm not a big Kincaid guy because he was a super senior last year. And yes, he's supposed to put up the numbers he put up. I'm not like shocked that a 23-year-old was outproducing 20-year-olds on the field. It comes down to a Dalton Kincaid. He wasn't consistently productive. His big games came against very weak defenses, and he was like 23 years old doing all this. He's going to get drafted and be 24. I don't think much of him. I don't think he's very good in terms of as a prospect. I think he was a great college player who's not going to translate too well to the NFL level.
Hot take. He was good as a senior.
Yeah.
I don't know why he came back. He kind of surprised people. I think he would have been an early day 2 pick if he had come out. Yeah, he had production his year before last.
I think he was in community college, or I don't know where he was
in San
prior.
Diego.
So I don't blame him for.
He has 1
What's
year. He was in San Diego,
Yeah,
so he actually played 1 year of high school football.
Oh.
He was a high school basketball player, and he made the jump from basketball player to football player. So he actually started at USD, so super small school, and then he transferred.
Yeah, he was getting outproduced by Brent Queeth. Never heard of Brent Queeth? Similar age.
Yeah.
In 2021. And I don't expect the best from tight ends, but when you're getting outproduced by another tight end who's a no-name, who's not getting drafted and who's the same age as you, I'm not super into that, honestly.
I'm believing in a late bloomer, but yeah, he was old. There's no denying that. And he does have a back injury. That's something you do need to keep in mind, too, for Dynasty folks. There's some questions about Dalton Kincaid's back. But, Aidan, passing it over to you, man. I think I know who you're taking. Who are you taking at 5?
I'm going to go back to wide receivers here and go with Zay Flowers. I'm super high on Zay Flowers. Feels like he's flying up draft boards, speaking of people that are absolutely rising. Combine and pro day. You look at his production, it's only about 1,000 yards or so, but the QB play was so poor at Boston College last year. They didn't even like between what was it? What was that guy's name? Jerkovich.
Phil Jerkovich. And I hate that dude.
He was going to be the guy. He was supposed to be the guy.
Got her. Yeah. Between him and Moore, they didn't even throw for 3,000 yards, like a 3-2 TD to INT ratio. Like the passing offense was really poor there. The fact that he even went for 1,000 yards feels like somewhat of a miracle. Like when you watch his tape,
Medal of Freedom. He needs the Medal of Freedom for Joe Biden for going for 1,000 with Jerkovich.
Like you watch his tape and like some of his more exciting highlights are where he's just breaking off DBs and like Jerkovich gets sacked, but he's like 5 yards behind the DB. It's like a real QB, like getting him in a nice offense. Like he gives me Tyler Lockett vibes, kind of his size and kind of route tree potential. I think, all 3 levels, whether it's stuff under the middle, stuff, deep or it's kind of like your like deep ins and outs. Pretty successful route tree. It's not kind of like a one trick pony. I'm pretty high on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second or third wide receiver off the board in just a couple weeks. But what do you guys think about Zay Flowers?
Kev, he's another
Who
senior.
wants to,
He's another senior.
yeah, I mean, it's not just senior, just he wasn't a dominant producer. I guess 2020, but even so, it's like relative to team, it wasn't super crazy. Like Hunter Long was like almost Hunter Long had more receptions.
The Rams.
Zay had more touchdowns.
The Rams
and
goat,
yards.
Hunter Long. Is that the guy the Rams
Hunter
traded?
Long. That is the return for elite future Hall of Famer Jalen Ramsey. So never forget. But yeah, it's not like Zay Flowers had like this dominant season where his second best competition was Hunter Long, and then his like production wasn't as good as a junior, and then he broke out as a senior, where kudos to him for breaking out eventually. But even so, I didn't see on tape something that, going back to Quentin Johnston moves different. I didn't see that out of Zay Flowers. Like it feels like weird when he's turning a corner on his route where he has 4.4 speed, but I was kind of hoping for 4.3 to be like, okay, he's that difference maker speed wise. He could be your deep threat. He's 5'10", like 177. So he's a smaller guy. Relative to weight, I wasn't very impressed by his speed, and I don't see on film something that is going to just make a huge difference at the next level. I think he's going to be a good player. I don't think he's going to be a great player, which fine for fantasy. If he lands like in a very good environment, like the Chargers per se, and like, Keenan Allen's getting older, Mike Williams can't stay healthy, I would draft Zay Flowers on the Chargers, but I'm not going to draft Zay Flowers on like the Ravens or a low pass volume offense where,
please,
you know what I mean?
But
Like
the Ravens,
because the Patriots, no.
Yeah,
no.
I don't trust him. I mean, Patriots, that would be a good fit in terms of like adding, they need a Zay Flowers type on the team. Like,
yeah.
But when it comes down to like fantasy production, I don't want a Zay Flowers on a like average to below average pass volume offense, because I don't think he does. Tyler Lockett, think about how long it took Tyler Lockett to be Tyler Lockett in general. Tyler Lockett developed while he was in the NFL. He got even better. So you're projecting a lot out of Zay Flowers to have to get to that level. Can he be early career Tyler Lockett? Sure, by all means. He can have that similar production on like a per target or per route basis, not per route, per reception basis. But I don't buy Zay Flowers as this future wide receiver 1 or even 2, maybe fringe 2 at best, but that's about it. And that would take like I said, a Chargers-esque offense.
Yeah, Matt Harmon with reception perception that I referenced earlier had him 74th percentile against man, 79th percentile against press man, and 59th against zone. He had him, when he charted him, 29% of snaps out of the slot, 39% at right, 26 at left. Yeah, he's interesting. He's like an alpha wide receiver who's tiny. Like, that's kind of his profile. And does that translate at the next level? That's tough. Like, really, the only outlier there is like that's hit is T.Y. Hilton, right? Like guys that have been really good, highly productive wide receivers at that size. So, like, I think the late production stuff is tough. He's not going to show up in a lot of prospect models, right? Like, he's not going to flash on the screen like a Jalin Hyatt would. I see what you're saying about, like, Kev, about him maybe being more like of a less chaotic route runner, but when it hits on the tape, it looks really smooth. It looks really heady. And
yeah,
he's gotten comped recently to Diontae Johnson, because Diontae Johnson's a really good route runner separator, but has stone hands. And Zay Flowers has like stone hands. Look at his drop rate. It's tough. But yeah, I agree. I think it's super fair to be skeptical with Zay, but I think he just makes you feel something when you watch him. Like, he just gets you fired up.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to describe.
Yeah, just going, again, the whole move's different. It's just his hips. I felt like his hips were slow. He just didn't turn fast enough on tape. He's fast, but the movement wasn't really impressive. And Boston College, I guess, ACC, so he's facing good competition, but I wasn't super into it. Like, he's fine. I'm not like, I'm not like, do not draft Zay Flowers. I'm just not going to say, go get him. And if a team takes him, I think he helps the team, which is great. So I wouldn't like knock a team for taking him, because he's going to help. Like, he could be a solid Z wide receiver. He could be that too. But I just don't know about the fantasy production. And yeah, Diontae Johnson, I guess the fine comp, but like Diontae Johnson with like Kenny Pickett.
Stuff
in terms of fantasy.
But Herbert,
yeah,
sign me up.
Herbert,
now we're
talking.
Okay. All right, Kev, you got picks 6 and 7. What are you doing?
Okay, now I'm going to go with the good small wide receiver, Josh Downs,
There it is.
UNC.
There it is.
Now, Josh Downs, slower than Zay Flowers. They're both run 4.9, but Josh Downs is closer to that 4.5 range. However, Josh Downs, going back to it, moves different. You look at him with not just the ball in his hands, before the catch, he can shake a defender so well in that like 5 to 10 yard range that I trust him to get open on a regular basis in the NFL. He might be a slot. He might be a pure slot, which is unfortunate due to his size and speed. But when it comes down to it, and you look at him and you look at his production, sophomore production, 100 receptions, 101 receptions, 1,300 yards, more than twice as much as the next guy on the team. He was playing with Sam Howell, so he had an NFL quarterback. He didn't have Phil Jerkovich, but I mean, it's not like Sam Howell's.
How dare you? It's Phil Jerkovich.
Yeah, Jerkovich.
Call him Jerkovich.
Excuse me.
Dude sucks.
Jerkovich.
That guy sucked.
Yeah, you're a Jerkovich. No, I watch Josh Downs. I look at his production. It checks out. Is he going to be a deep threat? No, but can he take it deep with the ball in his hands? Absolutely. He's one of those guys, but he has good hands too. So it's not like I'm worried about the ball getting in his hands. It's just I don't think he's going to be. He's not Marquise Brown. He's not Will Fuller. I don't know. I don't even know. I think if you want to say the DJ with Ben Roethlisberger, I think that's, I don't know why we keep going to Diontae Johnson as the comp here. And I'm
because they're all small. Everyone in this class
these are all
small dudes, dude. They're all tiny.
They're so small. It's hard. The biggest problem is the NFL hasn't drafted this mold of wide receiver until more recently. And, obviously offensive rules have helped and benefited these smaller wide receivers, given that you can't really touch them anyway. So looking at Josh Downs, again, going back to the production, going to the tape, it all checks out. He had alpha level production, and I think he could have some semblance of that in the NFL as long as he stays healthy. He could have those 150 target seasons, high catch rates. I'm very excited about him no matter where he lands, honestly. I'd be drafting him.
At 5'8", Josh Downs, by far and away, was the best contested catcher. 72% completion percentage on contested catches for Josh Downs at 5'8".
That's impressive for that size.
What a baller. What a baller. In my notes, I just have, he's really fucking good. That's what's in my notes. Josh Downs.
He's small, but he's good. And that's kind of the case with all of these guys. They're small, but they're good. And you kind of just have to pick your poison. You can't really look at height. Honestly, these are all short kings. They're tiny titans. We love them. They're so talented. And they move in a special way, like the Josh Downs, the Addisons, even Zay Flowers in his own way. Like when he gets deep, he's very good at the top of his route. That's where I like Zay Flowers, aside from the hands. But like when he gets open at the top of his route, he's very good. It's just in the middle where it kind of bothers me. Yeah, so I would take Josh Downs over the Zay Flowers, but he'd be my 4. He's like, there's that top 3. You can't touch that top 3, but right under is Josh Downs.
Okay, I like it. Josh Downs, nasty route runner. Who do you have taking at 7?
Now, there's someone I would take at 7, but there's someone just to follow along with pass catchers, not to get too caught up with my love for wide receivers. I already have 2 in this draft, so let's pretend, my roster's stacked. I'm going to take a tight end here. I'm taking Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. He'd be my tight end 1 in fantasy.
Wow. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's not my tight end 1 in real life because I love Darnell Washington. I think he's the most talented tight end for the sake of real life, because using him as like a 6th O-line, his yak and his ability to be an end zone target. I love Darnell Washington. I would not take him in fantasy because I don't think he's going to have the target share necessary. However, looking at Luke Musgrave, he has like next to no production in college, which is unfortunate.
None.
He tore his ACL. Yeah, he didn't play. My comp is Hunter Henry, early career Hunter Henry.
Okay.
I think he's going to be a dynamic pass catcher down the field. I think he's the guy people think Dalton Kincaid is.
Okay.
And it's so unfortunate that he missed all of that time in college. I'm a Pac-12 guy. I like to watch, the opposing teams. And Musgrave, when he did play, those little snippets were impressive. He showed that speed at the combine. He had I think he was like a 4.5, 4.6. He was very, he had great tight end speed. And
He's like built like Kyle
Honestly,
Pitts.
it's just so unfortunate.
He's like low-key built like Kyle Pitts, like his athletic profile.
He's insane.
It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. In my notes for Musgrave, I have if Mike Gesicki was good. That's my comp for like Luke Musgrave. Like if Mike Gesicki could like break a tackle and run downfield, like he seems like one of those seam route tight ends. It's just like you put him in and they're just going to change the dynamic of the offense. He's a mega athlete, but yeah, he couldn't stay healthy.
I hate guys who can't stay healthy, but I hate that more so like in redraft where it's like a one shot. Like I have one shot at this guy. If he can't stay healthy, I'm screwed. But with Musgrave, I'm willing to bet on him long term. And like I said, the early career Hunter Henry when he still had that explosion, I think that's what he could be. Where like he's like 9 yards per target, like 8 to 10 touchdown potential. But again, just has to stay healthy, and that was the Hunter Henry conundrum until now, where he's just kind of a jag. So it's unfortunate,
Yeah,
and
dude.
at this
Well, he
point,
got paid. He got
at this point, yeah, he got you. Good for him. I'm happy he's rich, but at the same time, he kind of sucks now. So, what are you gonna do?
All right.
Musgrave's my guy here. Shooting for upside. I would have taken another small wide receiver, but I just have too many of those at this point.
Okay. Aidan, who are you taking at 8?
Let's do it. I'll keep the tight end train going. I thought he'd be gone. I'll take Michael Mayer from Notre Dame here.
There it is.
I thought you were going to take him, Kev. So I was ready to cross him out. I was like, gone. All right, he's gone. I'll go ahead and take Michael Mayer. I think one of my favorite parts about him is one, super productive over the last 2 years at Notre Dame, but 2, I think he's going to be on the field a ton due to his blocking ability. I don't think he's a tight end that's only going to be on the field for, passing snaps or that's only going to be keyed on for passing plays. I think because of him doing the dirty work, he's going to play a ton. He's definitely a 3-down guy. And another thing I like about it is his yards after catch. Like you watch his tape and it just feels like he's consistently dragging people like 5 yards for first downs, just the strength and yards after catch. Like he gives me this like Jason Witten vibe to a degree in terms of just like,
yes, I get Witten vibes
pretty
too.
big dude, like not the fastest, but like for sure an athlete for 6'4", 250. Like he's an athlete out there. He's going to be an issue matched up against linebackers or some of those smaller slot corners. And I see him producing from day one. Whether he's absolutely like elite in terms of fantasy standards, I have trouble seeing that. But in terms of like being like an absolutely sturdy NFL tight end who's going to, do both the dirty work in the passing game and blocking, I like Michael Mayer a lot.
Dude, I have in my notes, is he the fastest slow dude in the world? Like, because he's not fast, but he can scoot.
He can kind of go.
Like, once he starts moving, he's like going. And like he had an insane amount of contested catch opportunities, so 6th most in college football last year, and he came down with 65% of those. Now, that could be kind of a bad thing because usually if you're always in contested catch situations, it means you're not necessarily separating. But I mean, he just refuses to drop the ball. Like he's just like Mr. Reliable. He is like a later career Antonio Gates, like later career Jason Witten. No disrespect, because those guys were really dynamic athletes when they came into the league. But like Mayer is like you put him on the Bengals. You
Send
put
him
him
to Dallas
on
and let's cook.
Yeah,
Send him to Dallas and let's cook.
the Cowboys.
Whoa. Jake Ferguson erasure. I'm sorry.
Oh, we got a Ferguson truther. I love it. But like you also put him on like the Dolphins and he would just crush in that Shanahan McDaniel type scheme. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Mayer. But
My comp, not to get too deep into comps, but my comp for Michael Mayer is Heath Miller. I think he's just going to be a guy that helps you win football games. He does the dirty work, like you said. He consistent like 80 to 100 targets yearly, but just not a fantasy, like a breakout fantasy star. So like I don't want like not a roster clogger, but just a guy you're just like reluctantly starting in fantasy where you're like, oh, I got 10 to 12 points out of my tight end, which is great, but I'd rather have the guy I think could put up Mark Andrews numbers.
he thinks better, Freiermuth or Mayer?
I mean, as a prospect, Mayer, but Freiermuth's proven it at the NFL level. So I'd have to go, if you give me like a toss up, I'd go Freiermuth.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So
I'd take the proven commodity who's still kind of young and hasn't really dealt with injury. I mean, Mayer hasn't either, but he's proven himself. Where Musgrave, I'm taking the shot on potentially being a great tight end. And if he fizzles out or gets hurt again, whatever, I drop him.
who cares? It's
It's the tight end position. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
you're swinging for the
exactly.
fence with that position. It's like aside from the top few, it's such a marginal difference.
You
Yeah.
came up
It would
there.
take a very bad offense for Mayer to land on to get those like Jason Witten target numbers, I think, because he didn't really play with much talent at Notre Dame in terms of wide receivers or whatever. So he was kind of like the only guy, and he put up solid numbers. Like no one's saying he was bad, but it just wasn't per target, per reception, or anything too amazing. It was just good. It was like really good. And real life, I think he's my like tight end 1-2. Like he's in that mix with Washington, just like depending on team need and like team construction, and whether you're more run heavy or pass heavy. But yeah, fantasy wise, I'm not as. He's just so meh.
Yeah. Low. If he develops into a high floor player, that's kind of like probably his best case situation at tight end.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't want that in a dynasty. Like I'll trade for that after the first year if somebody's disappointed by Michael Mayer not being Travis Kelce or some shit. Maybe he's Zach Ertz. Maybe. I don't think so, but I think he could.
I don't see him.
People say that, and I don't buy it. But
I feel like he's not athletic enough. Like Zach Ertz had some scoop to him. Zach Ertz was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, but like I said, like the like 600 to 800 yards yearly with like 5 to 8 touchdowns. That's Michael Mayer.
It's pretty good
with good pass pro. It's good.
It's a good player.
But I'm not breaking my dynasty draft bank here for that.
Okay, cool. So Michael Mayer's off the board. I am sitting here and I have to make this pick, and I don't really want to, but the data doesn't lie. And Jalin Hyatt needs to come off.
Yes.
And I know the stats are fake news. Like I get it. He faced 0 press coverage. It was a fake offense. They ran him outside of the hashes. They stacked him behind other wide receivers. They just let his 4.4 speed get after it. I've heard all the comps. He's just DK Metcalf that's never seen a weight room. Like, I get it. He is at best probably like a Will Fuller or a Ted Ginn, which, again, isn't waking you up in the middle of the night. But, like, at some point or another, whether it's skill or scheme, the stats he put up last year are absurd. And when you plug that in, an early declare like breakout candidate, won a Bolitnikoff, you put that stats into any model based off his speed scores, the guy comes out as somebody who's going to be a good NFL player. Now, it may be wrong, right? He may be too light to be in the NFL. He maybe not be very good. He maybe not have any nuanced route running skills. Like, it's a big maybe. At this point in the draft, I take Jalin Hyatt. He's off the board. I'm swooping him up, even though it seems a little fake news. But on the off chance he is just like baby Will Fuller, I'm here for it.
I mean, Will Fuller had a wide receiver 1 season in points per game
on steroids
years ago. So it's
not like Will Fuller on steroids is a different beast.
Pre or post drugs, yeah.
That's fair. That was very fair. But hey, maybe Jalin Hyatt roids up one year and you get a fantasy wide receiver 1. So
maybe he already is, and that's what happened.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Hyatt guy because I think that Tennessee offense was so fake. I don't care. I think everything was so filthily schemed up. And, shout out to Hupel for doing what he did with Hooker and making him look like a first-round quarterback and fooling everybody for like 75% of a season. But I go back and watch Hyatt, and it's just like him behind 2 huge wide receivers like Tillman and I don't know who else. And it's just like him just running straight after they block 5 guys in front of him. So, he's fast by all means, but he's not like 4.3. Again, he's 4.4 on the dot, like, which is fast, but it's not game breaker fast. It's not like it helps an offense.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing. I thought he was going to run the 4. Aiden, did you think? I thought he was going to run the 4.3.
I thought he was going to be. I think it would have helped him mightily if he would have run the 4.3s. Given it, like it kind of feels like a one-trick pony, especially on offense. It's like, besides being a deep ball threat, it's like I don't see him being like a full route tree. All 3 levels of the field. So like, a low 4.3 probably would have helped him quite a bit. But to your point, it's like the athletic profile is definitely interesting. At this point, we're in the end of the 3rd round here with our wide receivers. Like,
no brainer.
I'll take a swing on that speed. If it ends up being, a Will Fuller, like, hell, that's awesome. If it is, bargain bin Ted Ginn, that's a bummer. But at this point, I think we're at the point where it's like, you know what? Like, swing for the fences. I love speed. Just like, go for it.
Yeah. I don't know. I have bad feels that it could end up a Devin Duvernay.
Oh, man.
Where Duvernay was super productive at the end of his career. And they have different body types. Like Duvernay's like built thicker. He's more yacky in terms of yards after contact-y than Hyatt, who just misses guys. I don't know. They're both fast. They're both small. I'm not I'm not super into that profile, and I'm not super into the tape, especially considering that he didn't break out until his junior year. He just was super and it's just not like they weren't passing too much, that he just wasn't earning targets until they were just throwing behind the line of scrimmage and having him go insane. So I can't get into Jalin Hyatt.
Yeah, he's going to be super landing spot dependent. Like if again, we keep saying Herbert, give Justin Herbert that kind of
They
speed.
need a weapon so bad.
Yeah,
if they don't
that'd be
get
pretty
someone
cool.
early, like they've got to do it, right? They have
That
to.
That would be pretty cool if that kind of speed got injected into that offense.
They need it bad.
Because he offers no wiggle. He doesn't break tackles. It's a one-trick pony. But I had to take it with that kind of production at this point in the draft. I don't really want to take his teammate. I can't have two Tennessee guys. And basically, Cedric Tillman's ceiling is Michael Gallup. So I don't know if I'm taking Tillman here.
I'm out on Tennessee wide receivers. I'm out.
I know I got a couple guys staring me in the face here that I like, but I'm just going to have the most disgusting team of all time. I'm taking Sam LaPorta, tight end, out of Iowa off the board here. I'm going 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers for just a really bad team here. What I think is really cool with LaPorta, he's pretty good route runner. You don't think that he's going to be a good route runner, and then you watch the tape, and he's got way more wiggle than Michael Mayer. He is smaller than Mayer, right? So LaPorta's about 6'3", but he's doing stuff at the line of scrimmage that's really cool. And he's lining up all over the place. He's kind of got that like George Kittle demon energy once he gets the ball. Like it's not super clean when he catches it, right? It doesn't look great. It doesn't look that natural. But once he's got the ball in his hands, he's like, okay, time to hit somebody. Like he's like a bull in a china shop, which like I super love to see out of a tight end. They ran a ton of screen passes, like behind the line of scrimmage screen passes to this guy, and he was just making guys miss. He actually had 20 missed tackles forced on 58 catches last year. So whenever he got the ball in his hands, he was making guys miss. And then his athletic profile at the combine was off the charts. He had a 9.5 math bomb RAS score. So like he tested exceptionally well. He can definitely hang as a blocker, has yak ability. I think he's really fun. He's just fun to watch. So I'm adding to my team. It's just a bunch of boomer bust guys and 25-year-old. So that's my squad here. So I'm going with Sam LaPorta. Your guys' thoughts on LaPorta?
I like LaPorta. LaPorta is interesting. He's been productive since his true freshman year. Looking at him, I mean, he was tight end 1 after I think TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant left. So he kind of took over and wasn't obvious. He didn't play too much. He only played 6 games, but he was one of the top 5 receiving guys. And then he led the team in receptions as a sophomore. In the last 2 seasons, he dominated production, which is exactly what you want to see. And like I said, with tight ends, it's weird. You don't really need them to be number 1 on the team year over year to be a great prospect. You just need them to be up there. And he was up there every single year. You watch his tape, middle of the field, fluid hips. You love to see that out of a tight end. Again, not the most dominant, downfield maybe, but like good yak guy. I'm intrigued by LaPorta. I want to see where he gets drafted.
Aidan, what do you think about LaPorta?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the biggest thing you said that I agree with is like just running angry, just like a big dude, just always getting those tough yards. Iowa's got pretty good rap of producing tight ends too, so it's like let's see where he lands. It feels like there's a lot of untapped potential with him too. So the right landing spot could absolutely turn into a decent fancy production there, or maybe it's just something mediocre. I don't know, but again, good production the last 2 years. At this point in the draft, I think it's a good pick.
All right, Aidan. The last time you had the last pick in a draft, you took Deuce Vaughn, and it shook the world at its foundation. Who is your last pick in this draft?
So I'm going small again. We're going small, guys. I've got 3 tiny wide receivers and Michael Mayer. I'm going with Tank Dell. If we want to talk about tiny dudes who absolutely produce, I don't know who else fits the bill better than Tank Dell. Like 2,700 yards and 19 TDs over the last 2 years at Houston. The level of play in the American Conference is like definitely something to note, and it feels like his role is definitely very limited. Like I see like best case scenario is probably like a Tavon Austin type guy. like he's probably not playing on the outside. I think a lot of his NFL value could come in the return game. But in terms of production at the college level, definitely stands out there. And
Tutu Atwell Jr., baby.
yeah, I
He's
think
Tutu
again,
Atwell back
we're
live in the flesh.
we're just keeping this
Kev's
team
Tutu
tiny,
Atwell.
but like watching him on tape is fun, man. He's just a slippery
It
little
is.
dude, like just absolutely elite production at the college level. But again, I think like the two biggest knocks are one, like it's the American Conference, so take it as you will. Like it's not a Power 5 school, it's not the best level of competition, and how capped is his role at the NFL level? Is he just a returner? Is he someone that's actually, getting valuable reps out of the slot, getting jet sweeps and really getting the ball, or not? But my last pick here, I'm going production and just potential, just like home run hitting ability at the next level.
God, I wish I liked Tank Dell. Production came later in his career, like junior, sophomore, or junior, senior, and whatnot, which is fine. It's not like to say he didn't break out. He broke out by all means. It's insane production, but he's kind of that, like you said, Tutu Atwell, baby between Tutu and Jalen Darden, where it's like their value is going to come either as like a wide receiver 4 or like a special teamer if they stay on their team for all 3-4 years of their contract. I don't see NFL wide receiver because that side, it's just so tough.
It's brutal.
5'9", 155. He's taller and the same weight as Tutu Atwell. That doesn't play. That just does not play in the league. And it's unfortunate because there is a cap to which these players can be tiny. And, the Downs, the Flowers, my pick that's coming, these guys, you could be tiny, but you have to meet a certain threshold. Not to say there's like a perfect BMI, because that, BMI for the most part is BS. Like we saw Devonta Smith just dominate despite it. But there is a certain weight, like floor you have to hit to be capable of playing and manning up against like NFL cornerbacks who are all a certain size at least.
At some point, like if they turn sideways and they're still flat, then we got to be out. But like
It's unfortunate.
They're 2D. But
They just disappear.
they're like 2D. But no, if you watch all his routes and stuff, he's fun. Guys on Twitter love him.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, I appreciate it. It's a fun last pick. I'm skeptical. I don't know, but he's fun to watch. Like it's just a fun
Blast to
player. And his
watch.
name's Tank. And he's literally the smallest dude in the draft. His name. Well, he's not. Deuces, actually.
Dude.
This class is so fucking small. Oh
Well, Deuce has some weight on him. Deuce can
He's thick.
is
thick.
He's got like
3 or
20
4
pounds
seed.
on him. He's got like 20 or 30 pounds on Tank. And he's
for
3
sure.
inches shorter.
It would be hilarious if Deuce Vaughn was like 155 at his height. You're just like, there's like, obviously no chance he makes it in the
Sir,
NFL.
that
But
is
it's
a
his
child.
Yeah, that's
That was a
me.
middle schooler.
That is a tiny person.
This made me look up Jalen Darden stats, not to go off on a tangent here, but I didn't realize Burrow had 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns in 9 games his senior year. So like, shout out Jalen Darden for putting up absurd numbers that last year. But yeah, it's like you could put up absurd numbers in college in like a weak conference, and it really just doesn't matter when you get to the NFL because you're just it's like you're playing in a weak conference. You didn't really have the size, and it just didn't translate.
No. I feel that. Kev, last pick.
Take us home.
Bring us home. You said you're taking another tiny one. Who do you got on the board?
I'm taking one of the tiniest that fit the bill, and it's Marvin Mims.
There it is.
Marvin Mims at Oklahoma, Big 12 school. He's been amazingly productive since his true freshman year. He was wide receiver 1. He played with Rattler. It's not like he was playing with Kyler and Hurts and all that good stuff. He was playing with Rattler, and then obviously Caleb Williams. That was great, but Caleb left this last year. And, Mims was putting up numbers year over year, and he just had his best season. True junior coming out. So he's coming out as an early declare, I believe. Yeah, like I thought he would be a bigger thing. I thought after his true freshman year, but he kind of, fell to the wayside. He had a dominant, productive year as a sophomore, but that was kind of like with Williams and Rattler kind of sharing the bill. So they had a weird year at Oklahoma his sophomore year. And then this last year, he put up what is it? Over 1,000 yards. He's had 20 yards per catch over the last 2 seasons. It's like,
dude can play.
He's that guy.
He
He
can play.
had twice as much. Yeah, he
Play.
twice as many yards as the next guy in Oklahoma this year, as Braden Willis. They played the same amount of games, more catch. I don't know. Like, we're not talking about Marvin Mims enough. I would take Marvin Mims. Yeah. I would take him legitimately in like the real draft, like a first round pick. Like I would take him over the Hyatt. I would take him over Zay Flowers. I think he's that dude. He's my wide receiver 5 in this class behind Downs. More of the deep threat than Downs is, because Downs is more of like the, closer to the line of scrimmage guy. And I don't think Marvin Mims is going to break fantasy, but I think he's going to be a fantastic real life NFL wide receiver who has his big, like, best ball games that you're just like, holy crap, I got 25 points out of Marvin Mims from nowhere.
You see the ceiling, like where Cedric Tillman, you look at him and he's like, this guy's going to be a good NFL player. Then it's like Brandon LaFell, or like big X guy, like Michael Gallup is his ceiling. But you see Marvin Mims and like, it might be number 17. It might be because he's wearing the hand warmer thing. I see a little scary Terry to his game, and he's nice, and he blew up the combine. Like him and Jonathan Mingo in particular both had really good combines. And I thought maybe you were going Mingo here, but I like Mims. He's gaining some steam. Mims is gaining some steam as somebody who's could be a pretty good NFL player. Aidan, what do you think about Mims?
I'm big on Mims.
I like him too. I saw a comp earlier that I really like too, to Darnell Mooney. I see more Mooney than Scary Terry in my opinion.
Yeah, Scary's like his,
because I think like Scary Terry, he's like breaking like wide receiver 1, in a lot of weeks. Whereas I think like Darnell Mooney is a safer like ceiling for him. Like I think he could absolutely slot in as a wide receiver 2 at the NFL level and be uber productive, as he's already shown to do multiple years at big time Power 5 school.
Mooney's gone over 1,000 yards in an NFL season before.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people think of Mooney as kind of like, oh, Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's like a good player. So that's a good comp.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that's a good that's exactly what I would say. And he's the perfect like complementary wide receiver. Like we're talking about Jordan Addison, JSN complementary. Like they're more so complementary, like
very
high end target share guys. But you put a Marvin Mims next to a Treylon Burks in Tennessee. I keep going back to Tennessee because they just don't have a wide receiver 2. Yeah. But like you put any of these guys, honestly, and really I love it. I wouldn't put a Josh Downs. I wouldn't put a Josh Downs next to a Burks because I just feel like their games kind of overlap in a weird way. But like Addison, JSN, Mims, I would love any combination of that with Treylon Burks in Tennessee. I really hope they draft a wide receiver because their offense is so ugly without it. And I want Treylon Burks to succeed so bad, but he can't do it on his own on that. Like,
all right, Kev. Okay. Boys, this was a great time. I already forgot everyone's teams. I think I came down with QJ, Dalton Kincaid, Jalin, Hyatt, Sam LaPorta. Aidan, who's your 4?
4 was JSN, Zay Flowers, Michael Mayer, and Tank Dell.
Who do you got, Kev?
Marvin Mims, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, and Luke Musgrave.
It's a squad. Okay, the team that scores the most points next year gets a round of drinks on the losing team. Deal?
Deal. Let's do it.
All right, boys.
Shake hands. Shake virtual hands.
Kev, thanks for joining us. Aidan, thanks for hopping in, filling in for Keegan. This was a blast. It was great covering this really weird and small wide receiver class. If you have made it this far into the episode, please go touch some grass, hug a loved one. We appreciate all the support. And until next time.